Did you enjoy the Domestique social ride earlier this week?
Yeah.
Is this Vuelta more important for Roglic than for Vingegaard?
Yes.
Imagine you being a DS. Would you bring your best sprinter to the Vuelta looking at the start list?
Yes.
Can Remco Evenepoel only lose the Vuelta?
Mm. No.
I've got the spores, the sickness. There's the twins in my brain.
The Giro, Primoz Roglic. The Tour, Jonas Vingegaard. But who will win the Vuelta? The last Grand Tour of the season is right around the corner. Through the heat in Spain, combined with the insanity of the Spanish climbs, the best Grand Tour riders will compete against each other for the Holy Grail, the red jersey in Madrid. Seems like a lot of our domestiques are struggling with season fatigue, as only Bram is willing to join the preview of this magnificent Grand Tour. Hi Bram, how are you?
Hey, doing well. Recovered from our domestic social ride on Sunday. So maybe that's the problem with the other guys.
It was quite a hard ride, wasn't it?
It was surprisingly tough because of the heat. If if you're not really able to deal with the heat, then yeah, it was a bit of a struggle. I don't really have issues with it. You didn't seem to have issues with it either, judging by how hard you rode up all those climbs. But yeah, can't blame them.
I have to be honest, after 11 kilometers, the Oude Quaremont, followed by Paterberg and Koppenberg, it really cut off my legs. That was insane in the first hour of the ride.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a rough start. But hey, we learned something for next year, and we're not going to do that again, I think.
Will you consider participating in a second edition?
Yeah, of course. I had a lot of fun. It was a great day.
Well, enough talked about our own ride. Let's dive right into this little race in Spain, shall we?
Do
The
it.
concept of the preview podcast remains the same. We will walk through the team selections and talk about their main men. Up to you, Bram, to decide with which team we start.
Oh, actually, let's just go for the big one instantly and start with Jumbo-Visma. I think that's the team that everyone's excited about because
And
of
who's lining up for them?
you have Robert Geesink, Wilco Kelderman, Sepp Kuss, Primoz Roglic, Jan Tratnik, Attila Valter, Dylan van Baarle, and Jonas Vingegaard.
That's a bonkers team.
I think this is stronger than their Tour de France team. So yeah, their goal really is here to win 3 Grand Tours in a season, and they're doing everything they can to do that. Sending both Primoz and Jonas to the same Grand Tour. Well, last time it worked out, so it's going to be very hard for whoever wants to take it from them.
At the start of the podcast, I asked, is it more important for Roglic this Vuelta than for Vingegaard? And you answered yes. Can you explain why?
Sure. I think it's because Primoz wants to maybe prove himself that he is still the equal maybe of Vingegaard, because right now it's very clear in the Jumbo ranking that Primoz is below Vingegaard, because of course Vingegaard has won the Tour 2 times, so it makes sense. This is one of the opportunities that Primoz has to say, no, I'm the leader here, or maybe to go for a 1-2, who knows, but I would say this is quite important for Primoz.
Can you say if Roglic does not beat Vingegaard and wins the Vuelta, his dream of winning the Tour de France is over, at least within Jumbo-Visma?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty important caveat. I think it'd be over within Jumbo-Visma, because you have Primoz, who has been able to prepare for this race absolutely perfectly, and a Vingegaard who has come out of the Tour and then not race at all anymore. So that's a pretty bad preparation. So if Primoz is not able to get ahead of Vingegaard on this occasion, I don't think he's going to be the leader at the next Tour de France.
But like, imagine a scenario Roglic wins this Vuelta and Vingegaard won the Tour de France a couple of weeks ago. The Tour de France 2024 for Jumbo will be quite stressy because Vingegaard is the defending champion, so he has the right to be protected and to be the main leader. But Roglic proved in the Vuelta that he can still compete with the best, so it will be quite interesting to see, I think, if Roglic wins this year's Vuelta, how they will play out Tour de France next year.
It's also depending on how they play out the Giro. If, for example, Jonas decides to go for the Giro, because there's this rumor that he wants to win all 3 Grand Tours in a year by himself. So that would mean next year he goes potentially to the Giro, and then who knows how he comes out of that. It'd be pretty epic.
We have to be honest, winning the 3 Grand Tours in 1 year is rather insane, and I would even say almost impossible.
Well, if he wins this year's Vuelta, which one we're talking about, then he can just go to the Giro next year and try and win that, and then he's done it. At least if you're looking at within the same 365 days. Doing it within the same season, I don't think that's possible. If he has that as a goal. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds kind of crazy.
Seems like Seems like Jumbo is only able to win a Grand Tour when their master domestique, Sepp Kuss, is lining up. It's his 3rd Grand Tour this year. That's I don't think he races in between the Grand Tours. He's just living from the Grand Tour to another Grand Tour to another Grand Tour. And when will his light go out?
Yeah, apparently this is what he loves to do, and also apparently he can recover from that. So they have the perfect domestique there, and he's not at all looking at his own chances for GC ambitions. I love Sepp Kuss for that. He's just the perfect teammate.
He's lucky, I think, with the role he has within the team as main domestique in the high mountains, that he is able to save some energy in the flat stages and in the hillier stages, so he can take it easy normally in the first week. Not right now in the Vuelta, of course, because they're already a summit finish in the 3rd stage. But he can extend his good form through the 3 weeks by saving a little bit of energy in stages that doesn't really matter. Then it's up to a Van Baarle, a Walter, a Geesink, a Tratnik to do the work. They can climb as well. It's only in the real high mountains that Kuss is vital for the team.
Yeah, he's basically a GC guy, but actually a domestique. He only has to work on the GC days.
To end up the Jumbo-Visma analysis, who will be on top, Roglic or Vingegaard?
I'm expecting Vingegaard, to be honest.
That's so Vingegaard without an altitude camp, without a proper preparation, can beat a Roglic who has been training for this since Giro.
I don't think he's had no preparation at all. It was the plan at the start of the year for Vingegaard to go to the Vuelta. Apparently, they kept it quiet until the last week of the tour. So they probably did do a training camp with him to get him ready for this. But just the way that he gets better through a Grand Tour is the 3rd week of this Vuelta is insane, and he's going to be perfectly ready for it.
I'm looking forward to that internal battle, to be honest. It will not really be a battle by the Jumbo-Visma communication, as they are always quite secret and vague about their communication, but it's both in their mind that they have to beat each other.
For sure.
For this Vuelta and for the upcoming Grand Tours. Let's move on to the team of Josh, Ineos Grenadiers. They are bringing Laurens de Plus, Filippo Ganna, Tijmen Arendsman, Egan Bernal, Jonathan Castroviejo, Omar Fraile, Grand Tour debutant Kim Hajduk, and good old Geraint Thomas. What do
Good
you
old
expect
G.
from the British star team or ex-star team?
What a controversial statement, Tobin. No, I kind of underestimated G for the Giro, and I kind of got a little bit of that spat back in my face. He was great in the Giro, so yeah, I think he's going to be ready for it. I don't think like he's on a similar level, I think, as someone like Roglic. In the Giro is very close between those two. But then you have someone like Jonas who is just another level, at least in tour shape. But the team from Ineos, I really like the team. They got a really good mix of like you also have a team time trial as the opening stage. I think that's really important. And you definitely see some of the GC oriented teams just bring riders really focused on this. Because, for example, you have a Filippo Ganna in this team.
Yeah, they brought him to the Vuelta especially for the team time trial. I've seen the communication of the team. It's purely for the team time trial as main priority to lose as less as possible seconds or to gain seconds on the opposition, of course.
Yeah, like I think that's a really great idea. Basically, he can compared to like a weaker team time trial team, like he's able to pull out 10-second gap, which if you have to make that up in the mountains, you're going to have to spend quite a lot of energy as your GC guy to be able to do that. So a perfect strategy in my opinion. And then of course you have a Lorenzo Plus and a Tijmen Arendsman who have proven in the Giro that they're a great mountain train for G.
Yeah, indeed, Lorenzo Plus is showing his exceptionally good form and climbing legs. Was it showing already in the Giro where he did some monster work for G? And now with Arendsman, yeah, the team communication is all about Thomas being the main leader, but Arendsman is growing. His fitness level is growing. He's getting better and better. At the start of the season, he had a little bit of trouble adapting to the new team, and he moved from the Netherlands to Andorra as well, as I recall correctly. So a lot of personal change for him. But now we are at the end of August. Vuelta that's actually made for him. A lot of climbing, not a lot of TT kilometers, and already at the third stage, a mountain stage. So there's already to position quite well in the GC. Do you expect him to be in the shadow of Thomas and strike when Thomas fails a little bit, or how will they use Arendsman?
I think he's a strong backup option. He's in the Giro as well. Both Arendsman and the Plus stayed in top 10 of GC for a very long time. I think until the end even. So those guys, they're very strong backup options. With G, I think he's not going to fail. That he's going to need replacement unless, of course, there's some bad luck involved. But yeah, Arendsman proved last year that these types of like the Spanish races, especially like the Uno Puertos, where you just have a hockey stick stage profile with just one big climb at the end, he's able to do those very well. And we have quite a few of those stages this year again.
Egan Bernal is going for his second consecutive Grand Tour this year. The most important thing in the Tour de France was finishing the 2021 stages. What should be his target right now in the Vuelta?
If the team wants to give him the freedom for it, I think he should try and go for a stage win. Of course, it's depending on how well he came out of that tour. I think he did very well for the form that he showed beforehand in the tour. Like he was very often still within the peloton, quite far up the climbs. So yeah, this is sort of the Grand Tour where I expect to see a few glimpses of the old Bernal, if possible. If not, hope we see it next year.
when I read that communication from Ineos about with extra information about every rider, they brought him first of all a little bit symbolical because the story he has, the road he had from last year, his crash in the winter till now, and more as road captain at that young age, quite weird. But the experience he has in Grand Tours by winning the Tour, winning the Giro already, quite a surprise in this selection is Hajduk. Originally, he probably he wasn't in the team selection. First it was Rowe, but then I saw a communication from Rowe as well that he was quite disappointed and even a little bit mad that he wasn't selected. Why would that be that they decided to take Hajduk instead of Rowe? Because Hajduk can't really show pretty good results neither.
Apparently it was in Poland where he sort of proved himself. I think it was on the podcast with Geraint Thomas, where he said, like he did a really good job in Poland to keep all the guys at the front and stayed within the main group over the climbs. So yeah, with Rowe, he's ridden, let's say, smaller races, and in those it's a lot more difficult to prove yourself. But you have pre-selections falling out of that. It happens. It's sports. You have a Sivakov who is going to be selected for this as well, but also fell out. So
that's because of the transfer he makes to UAE, most likely.
I don't know if it's because of the transfer, but obviously he's going to be pretty disappointed as well. But yeah, the first question I had when I saw the selection is where's Luke Rowe? But I think Kim Hajduk will do pretty good as well.
Yeah, of course. Anything to add about the Ineos Grenadiers?
No, not really.
All right, let's move on to Movistar. The guys bring Enric Mas, Carlos Verona, Oyer Loscano, Einer Rubio, Ivan Garcia Cortina, Nelson Oliveira, Ruben Guerrero, and Jorge Arcas. What about Mas?
If he has the shape from last year, then he's going to be a contender for podium or top 5. I'm guessing more like top 5, considering the field is quite a bit stronger this year. So yeah, I don't expect him to be competitive for the win. I am looking forward to seeing what someone like Rubio does here, and Loscano, of course. He's been on amazing form. And of course, having the Spanish jersey in Spain, that's going to be something special for him.
Well, we already know what's going to happen if Loscano wins the Grand Tour stage.
Oh, we're going to have a very good Domestique data tweet.
I think Dieter Loos will fly to Ypres to celebrate, drink beer, and just tell 1,000 times he discovered Loscano.
Possible.
An interesting name within that team for the sprint finishes, maybe, because the Vuelta is known for not being very suitable for fast men. But with the lumps and bumps that are on the road in certain stages, Ivan Garcia Cortina can maybe get close to a stage win or a podium. He has some fast legs.
Yeah, I agree. He's one of those guys that, especially in this Vuelta, can pick up quite a few like good placements, some UCI points, by just being up there. Sort of going to be a consistent theme throughout this preview, where so many teams are not bringing a sprinter or bringing a very, like, their second or third rate sprinter. Like, I don't get why some teams are not just bringing a decent sprinter to just clean it up. You can win 3 or 4 stages here if you bring your good sprinter.
Could he be a man that fights for the point jersey, or is that for GC, man?
I'm not sure how the intermediate sprints are located throughout the stages, but I don't see him as a points classification winner.
All right, maybe the last name I would like to talk about within that team is Ruben Guerrero. I'm actually quite a fanboy of that guy. Certainly when he was riding with the Education First last year. I remember his performance on the Mont Ventoux Dénivelé Challenge, where he demolished the opposition and rode a very strong ascent of the Mont Ventoux. But this year it has been quite up and down for him. Now he's able to start in the Vuelta within a Spanish World Tour team. So he can maybe go for the KOM jersey?
I think that's possible, but you also it really depends on what the goals are within the team. You have a Rubio there as well. I think he's probably a little bit more suited if they want to go for that. But if they really want to be serious about Mas going for GC, they need to chain them to Mas, and so they can't go for a KOM jersey. But of course, they'd be two pretty big favorites for that.
I have to agree with that. It all depends on Mas, because if Mas crashes out or feels ill or something, they have quite a lot of riders who can go rogue and go into attacks. They have a Carlos Verona who can climb very strong and he can go in breaks and try to take a stage win. They have Lascano, Rubio, even in Oliveira is climbing quite well. He's a very versatile rider. And then you have Guerrero. But it will all depend on the form Mas is showing, and we already will know after a couple of days how he will develop into this Vuelta.
Yeah, of course you're going to have a problem with them on the team time trial where, except for Oliveira, they're now bringing really PT guys, so they might already be looking at like 45 seconds of deficit on stage 1.
They are lucky that in the team time trials only around 15 Ks long, but you can lose a lot of time in 15 Ks. And there is, if I recall correctly, there are 18 corners on the course, so it's not that much. But when you have to do it in a team time trial, I think the coordination, etc., will be very important. Don't accelerate too hard. Don't accelerate too slow. It will be a quite interesting first stage already. And for that Spanish teams, that weaker time trial teams, it will be damage limitation.
Definitely.
All right, so we have the tandem Roglic-Vingegaard. UAE team members bring another exceptionally strong tandem, or maybe, even 3 leaders. Joao Almeida, mentioning he's stronger than last year where he finished in the top 5. Juan Ayuso, the Spanish wonderkid and Spanish hope for a Grand Tour win. Molano, one of the fastest men in the bunch in this year's Vuelta. Finn Fisher Black, very young, very explosive. I like the guy. Rui Oliveira and Ivo Oliveira. Brother Love. Marc Soler. And then, I'm going to say it, he's an enigma for me, Jay Vine.
A very interesting team. With the leading duo, I don't know if it's really a leading duo, but between Almeida and Ayuso. If I were them, I'd put everything on Ayuso. But of course, Almeida has proven himself in the past, so you can't just do that to him. And then you have Jay Vine. Like, Jay Vine is one of those guys. I see him either demolishing this Vuelta and like going for every single uphill finish from the break and winning like 2 of them, 3 of them even, or if we're not going to see him and he's going to like just disappear after the second week.
It's quite funny. I remember in the contract of Almeida and Ayuso, there is a couple of sentences saying that they don't have to domestique for Pogačar, that they will get their own chance in other Grand Tours. And UAE team members say, all right, you're not going to domestique for Pogačar in the Tour, so we're just sending you both to the Vuelta and fight it out. It's once again, some interesting tactics from UAE with a lot of individual stars, but will Almeida work for Ayuso and vice versa? I have my doubts.
I mean, they don't really have a history of drama between those two. I don't think they've ridden together previously. Maybe in like one day.
Last year's Vuelta, didn't Ayuso get on the podium and Almeida 5th?
I forgot that Almeida was in last year's Vuelta then. There's a lot.
Well, he likes to Almeida it, so just drop when the climb starts and then come back at the end.
He was actually 5th in GC. Look at that.
He was 5th on 7 minutes 24.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I don't know if there was drama last year, but looking at the results of last year, they didn't really have a chance to win the Vuelta because Remco Evenepoel was outstanding, and only Mas was able to follow Remco into the last week. Yeah, what about Soler? He's in there once again. He showed in the Tour that he's not that wild anymore. He's not going rogue that often. He tries to stay within the lines more than he did with Movistar. But still, as a Spaniard in the Vuelta, he will say to the management, I want my chance in some stages.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that mainly gets used as a satellite rider, gets sent up the road in the break. Pelotons, when they catch them, they do a little bit of work. But it's been in the case in the past where, when the moment comes where he needs to draw back to start helping out, it doesn't happen, and he actually tries to go for the stage win. Will that happen again? Like you said, during the Tour, he's listened every time that had to happen, and he did actually do pretty good work when Pogacar cracked on Col de la Luz. So the interview afterwards with Pogacar was beautiful, though, where he had very scary eyes.
There is a difference between riding for the Pogacar, who's the sole leader within the team. He's the driving force of UAE Team Emirates when looking at the Grand Tours. Now you have an Ayuso, the hugely talented Spaniard who carries the hope of the whole Spanish country on his shoulders. But he doesn't have that flair, that leadership attitude, I think, that a Pogacar has. So Soler might say, these lines are a bit more flexible and I can push left and right to do my thing. I don't know.
I think internally Ayuso does get that respect already. He's 20 years old. He's won at the World Tour. That demands some respect. He was on the podium of last year's Vuelta. Soler can think he's a big man, but he's never done that.
So Ayuso versus Almeida, Ayuso on top.
I would put Ayuso on top, and I also think that's where he's going to end up if you just let things play out and have them both race independently. I think on a hilltop finish is just better.
And Ayuso Roglic, Ayuso Vingegaard.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the Dieter Loos pick. Dieter Loos picks Ayuso as a Vuelta winner.
I had him as my preseason pick. Of course, we didn't know that which guys were going to the Vuelta at that point, except for Ayuso. But if he continues his form from last year, and he's going to be a bit better than last year, then how can he not be competitive for a podium or a win? Yeah, he's still 20 years old, and we're talking about him potentially winning this Vuelta, which has a Roglic and a Vingegaard and a Remco. So that already says something in itself, how special he is.
Anything to add about the wonderful UAE Team Emirates lineup?
Well, I think that Milano is going to clean up the sprints because I think he's the top sprinter here.
Better than Gerben Thijssen?
looking at the stages that are expected to be sprints, I think so. Yeah, they're not easy stages. Tyson is a like a really big sprinter, heavy sprinter. He's gonna suffer on those days. Where Milano has proven that, like, I think last year, the last stage, he got through that very well and actually beat his own leader in there.
He has Rui Oliveira, who will support him, I guess, in the sprint stages. And Ivo can do some things as well.
I mean, there are no lead-out trains in this Vuelta, so it's just going to be pure mayhem. Gonna love to see it.
I'm looking forward to see that, actually. Who will control when and who will go to the front at what point? Because
that's going to be very interesting, because when the break goes, who's going to control and how many guys are they going to use to control that break? From what I can see, nobody's going to be able to control the break, and it might be that there are no sprints.
That would be epic, to be honest.
Well, then you brought a sprinter, and then there are no sprints. That's kind of sad.
Well, before you start your love song about and for Remco Evenepoel, I want to talk about Vino's army. Astana Kazakhstan team brings an interesting team, we have to be honest. Andrei Zeitz, Fabio Filini, Samuele Battistella, Luis Leon, good old Luis Leon Sanchez, Javier Romo, Vadim Pronsky, Joe Dombrowski, and David de la Cruz.
Yeah, I like this team. I'm surprised to say, but it's an attacking team. I think, when was it? Like their Giro team was pretty shit. Their Tour team, of course, Cavendish kind of carried that. But I think this is a really attractive team. Like, you have a lot of riders in there that you kind of can root for.
Yeah, they have to do something, because besides the Cavendish win in the last stage in the Giro, they didn't really produce very good results in the Grand Tours. And UCI points wise, they have to start. They need to start working. But Javier Romo showed some pretty good form in the Vuelta a Burgos, where he finished seventh overall and took home the white jersey. Seventh overall, you would say, in Vuelta a Burgos, but the lineup in Burgos was actually quite decent, with Roglic, Vlasov, Adam Yates all lining up. So I'm not saying he will write a good general classification in the Vuelta, don't understand me wrong, but it proves that he has some good legs to start this Vuelta.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think he's going to use it for a GC, but more for stages.
It would be stupid if he goes for GC, we have to be honest.
Yeah.
For maybe an 11th or 12th place, you don't have to do it if you can win a stage win.
Actually getting 11th place in GC in terms of points, that would be like almost as much as a stage win. So it'd be also not stupid.
But looking at GC wise, they have the same problem as Movistar. They will suffer in the team time trial on the opening day.
Oh yeah, even worse.
Besides that, I don't really know who to talk about. David de la Cruz is already riding for ages in the pro peloton. Joe Dombrowski has quite a rubbish year, but can prove himself once again in the Vuelta. Luis Leon, he can always surprise us, but it seems to me like the age is kicking in a little bit for Luis Leon. He's still pretty decent, but it's going downhill a little bit, in my opinion.
I'm kind of looking forward to see what Javier Romo does. He's one of those a little bit uncertain. Was pretty good what Burgos. He won the youth classification there. And yeah, of course, for a GC, I don't think he's going to make it. But it's one of those riders to watch and then see where they end up.
All right, honors are yours. Let's announce Soudal Quickstep.
The good old Soudal Quickstep team. Andrea Baggioli, Mattia Cataneo, Remco Evenepoel, Jan Hirt,
Excuse
James
me.
Knox.
Say that name again, please, and not so average. I want to see you hyped.
Choo choo, Remco Evenepoel hype train. Jan Hirt, James Knox, Casper Pedersen, Pieter Seri, and Louis Vervaeke.
What do you think of that team? Because a lot of different opinions on social media when that team got announced.
Yeah, obviously, social media destroyed this team, but I don't think it matters. When Roglic and or Vingegaard go, there is not a single domestique in the world that would follow. So you just have to have Remco be really good. As for the hill support, mountain support, I think there is quite a bit of stuff to like. You have Louis Vervaeke, who was really good last year's Vuelta. Pieter Seri, who I think is underrated. Last year, he didn't get to prove himself at the Vuelta, falling out with COVID. And then you have Jan Hirt and Knox, who it's not certain how good they are. But we've seen glimpses of Knox having top shape, like how he rode in the British road race, the national championship. Really good form then. And Hirt has proven that he's like a very good climber, but he's not really been able to show that within Quickstep yet.
There were a lot of question marks why Van Wilder wasn't in the team, and everybody said, oh, Van Wilder is still young, he wants to go for his own chances, and he doesn't want to domestique for Remco in every Grand Tour. But I've read an article this morning, I think, where he said, the Vuelta was never on my schedule. He's only 23 years old, and he said one Grand Tour is enough for me. Next year is maybe something else, something else. But right now, one Grand Tour is enough, and I can't charge my batteries enough to go for another 21 consecutive days on the bike. So that's why he's not in the team. It's not because there is somewhere in the contract that he doesn't need to domestique all the time for Evenepoel. Let's make that clear to everyone. That's not the reason behind that. And his replacement is Jan Hirt. So Jan Hirt will be the last man for Remco Evenepoel. He's brought in to that team at the beginning of the year for that role, to get that role. So he knows what to do, and he knows his season till now isn't what it should have been. But if he's riding an excellent Vuelta, no one will talk about his year anymore and just talk about how he helped Evenepoel towards the Vuelta victory.
Yeah, for sure. And about the Van Wilder thing, you got to remember he's 23. I think Quickstep is being smart to bring him slowly, because that's something that a lot of people seem to forget about. Like young riders these days are just, oh yeah, they're there and they instantly have to perform. Like we were talking about an Ayuso, 20 years old, talking about winning the Vuelta. Van Wilder is perhaps on a different development trajectory. So having him not start here and actually giving him a couple of different races where he also has a bit more of a leadership role, I think that's fair considering his qualities. You got to keep all your wolves happy in your wolf pack. And if this is the way to do that for Van Wilder, I think that's very fair if you have a replacement like Jan Hirt sitting around.
I think people have to accept and realize that it's not normal that a 20-year-old like Ayuso goes for a Grand Tour win. Yeah, we have been spoiled with a very young Pogacar, a very young Evenepoel, a young Ayuso, and others are coming from the youth categories. They are shooting up to the pro categories in no time, but it's still not normal that such a young guy is able to compete with the best in a 3-week Grand Tour. People have to realize the white jersey, the young youth classification is still 25. So you're seen as youth till then. That's insane to think about, actually, that Ayuso can go for that jersey for the next 5 years. Then I'm already in my 30s. I'm starting to get old, starting to have problems with my back, maybe have a little kid walking around. And that
Why
guy
are you
can still.
describing me?
But that guy can still go for the white jersey. Then that's insane
Yeah.
to realize when you think about it.
Yeah. And
Evenepoel, in comparison to the big guns in this year's Vuelta, I ask you the question: can Evenepoel only lose the Vuelta? You said no, and I fear I have to say yes, because one way or the other, the media and Belgian media will find a way why it wasn't good enough for Remco.
of course, but that's where our role as a podcast is to say the opposite thing and actually take the pressure off a little bit. The Belgian media, of course, is going to say that he's going to have to win this, but he's up against a Vingegaard. Vingegaard is still meant to be on a different level. Remco says this as well. Vingegaard is on a higher level, as is Pogacar in Grand Tours. But if Vingegaard is not on his Tour de France level this year, it is going to be, for this Grand Tour, it is going to be an opportunity for Remco to, compare with Vingegaard, because I don't think they've raced against each other in a very long time. Of course, Remco knows Roglic quite well. They've raced against each other a lot in the last 2 years. But Remco versus Vingegaard, that's been a while.
I'm really interesting to see that battle. It's the first time we will see Evenepoel racing against the Vingegaard, Pogacar sort of guys, the non-humans on a bike, as some people call them. So I'm interested to see how he will cope with that, because he's starting the Vuelta now as one of the favorites, but in my opinion, not as the top favorite, mainly because Vingegaard is starting there.
Mhm.
So he has to raise it a little bit, to do it a little bit different as well. Everyone was looking at him last year because Roglic didn't have a proper preparation, crashed out, and Moss, let's be honest, Moss isn't on the level of the guys starting right now. So he might have to counter things more than he had to do last year.
It's where, learning how to lose a Grand Tour is not a bad thing. It honestly be quite a decent experience for him. If he's going to the Tour de France next year, he's probably gonna have a hard time as well. Especially Belgian media has this perception that Remco can't lose; he always has to win. And of course, I'm a big Remco fan. I also always want him to win, but I think in this field, he also has to understand that he's not the favorite, and if he doesn't win, it's fine.
It will be a huge learning curve for him to see how the best Grand Tour riders of them all race.
Of course, if he actually wins this one, then the roof is gone and the Belgian media explodes, and he'll have to win the Tour next year.
Well, if he wins the Vuelta, he wins the Tour the next 5 years. If you have to believe the Belgian media, then
yes,
he doesn't have another choice than winning the yellow jersey next year. So I don't know if I hope that he wins the Vuelta or not, because I would maybe like it more to see him now finish second or third and be beaten by a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Then okay, then he can go to the Tour in 2024 and be explosive as hell and go to the Tour without the expectations that there should be if he wins the Vuelta.
Yep, exactly. But of course, Remco hype train.
Choo-choo! Well, up to the next team. A pretty interesting team, actually. We talked about it before we start recording. Team DSM Firmenich starts with a lot of youth and experience. Romain Bardet lining up, not going for GC, an important side mark. He's going for stage wins and maybe KOM. He's not saying that, of course. Romain Combo, Lorenzo Milesi. You guys should remember him from his exceptional Worlds U23, the World Championship time trial, and he was close to be World Champion on the road as well. Alberto Dainese, one of the few fast men in the peloton. And then the youths with Sean Flynn, Oscar Only, Max Pooley, covered by Chris Hamilton. This team I love it.
Yeah, I think that was my first response when we were scheduling this podcast. Like, I love the DSM team. Like, the amount of youth in this team, it's going to be so fun to watch. I'm really excited to see Milesi. He's coming out of a great World Championship, so he's on good form. Of course, still very young, and again, all of this team is so young. With an Oscar only 20 years old, but with what he was showing last year, was it in the CRO race against Vingegaard? That kind of, he left a signature there as a 19-year-old at the time, going head to head with Vingegaard, who came out of the Tour, of course, so he's going to be a bit weaker. But I'm so excited to see this team.
Only and Poole will get their chance in GC. It's their first Grand Tour, so the team will see how they fare when the Vuelta progresses. But I actually hope one of the two loses a bit of time in the first week, then just says, okay, I'm going Gruppetto and lose 5 or 6 minutes, and then they just demolish it in breakaways in the third week, because those guys are lightweight, they are small, I'm really looking forward to the two young Brits, and together with Alberto Dainese, who is still very young as well. He has been around for quite a while, but he's still under 25. He's 23, if I recall correctly. 25, sorry. So, but he's still youth classification worthy. And then a Bardet, good old Bardet.
Yeah, I think Bardet is kind of going to be there as the learning master for the young guys. I don't know how Onley and Poole get along. If the situation does arise where one of them has to sacrifice a chance for the other, I'm curious how that's going to go, because, they're both 20 years old, both British. I'm guessing they get along just fine. But that might be a contentious moment between the two. And then you have a Sean Flynn there as well, of course, but he's not as much of a climber.
Poole and Only rode quite a couple of races together already this year, Tour de Pologne, Dauphiné, Tour of Hungary, Tour de Romandie, so quite a lot, and they are like exactly the same age, so probably in the youth categories they came across each other quite a lot. Looking at their talent now, they probably were amongst the best in earlier categories as well. So interesting team, love it. A lot is happening within the DSM Firmenich team, with contracts getting, how do you call it? Just people
terminated.
Leaving, people leaving the house, not being very happy. Juan van Hoek was the last, if I recall correctly.
I mean, there has to be one every year in that team, right? It just seems to be a thing where you have riders leaving mid-season or just rip up their contracts because they want to go elsewhere. There is something wrong in that team. I don't know what it is.
But then you have a Bardet and a Degenkolb deciding to go back to that team. So maybe some sort of philosophy thing within that team. I know they are very strict to wearing a hat, wearing gloves when you go to the start presentation. Everything needs to be perfect, the same for everyone. And maybe some of the riders that left the team can't handle that very strict approach to races.
You mainly see the young guys leaving and the old guys, the above 30s, coming back. Like you have Wawa coming back, Warren Barguil, also coming back for next year. So you kind of see guys at the end of the career really appreciating that team culture, perhaps. But young guys seem to be not as much of a fan. But we'll see where that leads.
Let's move on to a next Belgian team, Lotto Destiny.
Your favorite?
My favorite team, and my favorite transfer of last winter is lining up. Eduardo Sepulveda. I still don't understand why they brought him within the team, but I'm not gonna hate on them. I will try. Maybe the first podcast after 3 stages, I will start hating on them again. Sorry. Jared Drisner's lining up. Sebastian Grignard, Thomas de Gent, Milan Menten, Sylvain Moniquet or Young Wolf, Lennart van Eetveld, and Andreas Kroon. That team is the best they could bring, and it's actually a team I could like. They left the guys I don't like at home because I sent them a private message.
Careful with that.
Yep, we all know what you're talking about. So, yeah, what do you think about the team?
I'm very excited to see this team again. You have a lot of young guys. Again, like this is sort of the Vuelta, and especially this year's Vuelta, it's just like a lot of exciting young guys. And Lotto Destiny is bring that as well with Van Eetveld and Moniquet. And of course, Kroon, who has proven himself in the past, but since the Ardennes Classics kind of completely failed. And then you have Thomas de Gent in Spain. How can you not love Thomas de Gent in Spain? Very curious to see what he does.
What's the role of Eduardo Sepulveda?
I'm guessing he's going to lead out Milan Menten. I don't see any other reason why he's there. He did win a race like last week.
If Sepulveda is the lead out of Milan Menten, I'm gonna be
seriously. I don't know what else he's gonna do there.
The guy weighs 59 kilos according to Pro Cycling Stats. He's looking at it, he's a GC rider.
Yeah, but he's not gonna be like no chance.
His best result was 7th in stage 2 of the Sibui cycling tour, some sort of stage race in Romania, if I recall correctly.
No, he won a race last week.
Oh yeah. Oh damn, he's gonna top 10 GC. I missed that.
So he actually won stage 2 in Vuelta Castilla y León and the GC
against a very impressive opposition. The second was Pablo Castrillo from Equipo Ken Pharma. The third, Felix Engelhardt.
Who has won a World Tour race this year?
No. They're spending money on a guy from 32 years old who's not bringing anything to the team, and they should have invested it in some Devo guys for that money. That's my opinion. Very exciting to see Lennart van Eetveld after his, was it a month ban due to some issues with doping allegations initially.
That was a provisional ban.
So he came back very strong, and he's actually performing very strong in his debut year. It's his first year as a pro this year. He already won quite a couple of stages or was close to winning. So yeah, looking forward to the 3 weeks of him.
Yeah, he won a stage in the Sibiu Tour that you were just mentioning, the very high-level field.
He did more than that. I need to rectify myself right now. Because
the GC of the Alpe d'Huez Tour.
We have to be honest. Van Eetveld is loads better than Eduardo Sepulveda, who has been washed for the last 15 years. And I know he's only 32, but he has been washed when he was young as well. Let's move on to Total Energies. Or do you
please.
have anything to add about
No,
or
I'm gonna let you close on
Lotto
that.
Destiny? Total Energies brings Stef Kras, who rode an exceptionally strong Tour de France, though he crashed because of a spectator. Thomas Bonnet, Fabien Dubé, oh god, Alain Jussom, Pierre Latour, Paul Orselin, Geoffrey Soup, and Dries van Hestel. Stef Kras probably will try again in GC to get into top 10, maybe, if he has the form he had in the Tour. But besides that, I'm not impressed.
Steph Crossford top 10. I don't really believe in it in this very competitive field.
In the Tour before he crashed, he was 13th, and that was stage 8. He crashed, so he finished stage 7 as 13th. Yeah, I know.
There were a lot of very hard stages coming up, so I did expect him to slide back a little bit. But of course, he's more than welcome to have a go at it. And of course, I think for a team like Total Energy, like having a 13th place in a Grand Tour is a good result. They don't really do GC guys, so with the Pierre Latour, I'm kind of interested to see how it goes. With most of the stages ending on a hilltop finish, he doesn't have to worry about descending. So maybe that helps him get some better results. But I do also hope that he goes a little bit better in the descents, because in the Tour that was kind of sad to see sometimes.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add actually about Total Energies. It's a pity Sahan isn't lining up, because he always provides a show, even when he's not performing at all. But yeah, let's move on to another French team, AG Desert Citroën. They bring Andrea Vendrame, Geoffrey Bouchard, Paul Lapera, Nicolas Prudhomme, Damien Touzé, Laurie Warbase, Michael Cherel, and Dorian Godon. Besides Vendrame, who can top 10 maybe in a couple of stages. Yeah, it's sad for a World Tour team.
I have to agree. It's one of the very few teams where I didn't mark a single rider that I wanted to talk about. So yeah, I gotta agree. I think this is they've put everything they had on the Tour, which was quite good for them. But that sort of leaves them with a less strong field for the last Grand Tour of the season, which apparently is not that important for them if they're sending this field. But Dorian Godon, at what was Brabant Speel, he was very good. So if he has a shape like that again, he could go for a stage win. There aren't that many intermediate difficulty stages this year. But if nobody's controlling the break, like we said before, with the lack of sprint trains, he could go for a stage win from the break. But yeah, since his win in the Brabant Speel, I haven't really seen much of him.
No, his performances are quite weak. He DNF'd the Vuelta Burgos as well last week. And besides a break attempt in the last stage of Tour de Pologne, he didn't really do a thing, to be honest. So he has some talent, otherwise he wouldn't win the Brabant Speel. But he has to prove himself that it's not a one-day wonder.
Yeah, exactly. Hope he does that.
All right, let's move on. Before we do another exciting team, I want to do all those difficult names. Caja Rural Seguros RGA. A wildcard team. The second one we are talking about after Lotto Destiny, who's a pro team as well. I forgot to mention that. They aren't World Tour anymore because they are not so good.
Can you stop it? Move on.
So, Caja Rural, Michael Schlegel, Jefferson Cepeda, John Barentxea, Orluis Olar, Fernando Barcelo, Abel Balderstone, Joel Nicolau, and David Gonzalez. 2 to 3 names ring a bell for me. It's Jefferson Cepeda, Olar, and Barcelo. I saw Nicolau somewhere in a Spanish stage race as well, but I don't really know what the capabilities are of him. In my opinion, Jefferson Cepeda is their main man for a stage, trying to get a stage win, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have someone like Barrenetxea who is going to be in a lot of the breakaways. I remember typing his name a lot last year in the Domestique lives. That was a nightmare every time because that's a lot of consonants. Yeah, there's like an Orluis Olar. He rings a bell as well. I'm not quite sure why.
Isn't he a fast man-ish? He's a Venezuelan champion on the road and time trial. He's Central American and Caribbean Games winner.
Yeah.
In front of Miguel Angel Lopez, who's been
winning
doping,
everything.
So beating a doped guy is quite cool.
It's impressive.
Well, yeah, let's move on. It's probably just a team who will fill the daily breakaway and who will try to get as much exposure as possible in the early parts of the stages.
And of course, that's something that this peloton needs.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, without an early break, it's quite boring for us to do a domestic live. Bahrain Victorious brings an interesting team actually as well. A lot of interesting teams, like you already mentioned. Santiago Buitrago, Damiano Caruso, Matej Govikar, Kamil Gradek, Mikel Landa, his last dance for Bahrain Victorious, Wout Poels, Jascha Sutterlin, and the guy with not a that good name anymore in the pro peloton or for the fans, Antonio Tiberi. I love that team. Bahrain Victorious, I know they're sponsored by Bahrain Oil, etc. But they have always a quite attractive team to a Grand Tour. Like Alanda is always attractive, even if he's bad. He still attacks somewhere where it doesn't really matter, but we see him and it's always the Landismo feeling when he is in the drops and standing on his pedals. But now, together with a Poels, a Caruso, and a Buitrago, they are actually quite stacked for the mountain stages.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Landa does on most likely his last outing as a GC leader in a team.
He will domestique for Remco.
He's going to domestique for basically. Soudal Quickstep is bringing an extra guy. They've already asked Landa to ride for him this Vuelta. That's nice. Anyway, I'm curious what Buitrago does because with Landa leaving, he's going to sort of be their GC hopeful going forward, and then you have Antonio Tiberi, who's hugely talented. Controversial but talented. There's a couple more of those in the peloton, but yeah, I'm curious where he ends up because he was quite good in Tour de Suisse on the stage that Gino crashed. So yeah, I kind of expect quite a bit of him. And Wout Poels, he's had a very strong Tour de France. So also very curious where his legs have gone.
That Hovikar guy is quite young as well. He's only 23 years old. And with the sprinters field being quite weak in the Vuelta, he might be able to get a top 5 in a tougher sprint stage, because in the third stage of the Dauphiné he finished 5th. In a tough stage with over 2,000 altitude meters, won by Laporte in front of Trentin, Menton, Hofstetter, and then Hovikar. So he might be able to sneak into the top 10 a couple of times.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Then, if I recall correctly, the second to last Belgian team, the World Tour team Intermarché Circus Wanty, is actually the only team that brings a sprint train with Boy van Poppel, Rune Hergots, Gerben Thijssen, Hugo Page, Julius Johansen, Kobe Goossens, Rui Costa, and Rein Taramé. So there you have quite a separation between that's Domestiques for Thijssen, and you guys can do what you want in the mountain stages and in the hillier stages.
Yeah. This is going to be they're going to need to be the team that is going to carry the chases, I think, which is going to be something new for Intermarché, I think. With Thijssen being likely the more dominant sprinter here, just in terms of raw speed. He has the opportunity to pick up 3 stage wins in a Grand Tour. So I think Intermarché is just betting on that. Hope it works out. But of course, with a Kobe Goossens who was very on form very early in the year, and has always sort of been this like unfulfilled promise. Like he's always been very talented, and it sort of came out early this year. I'm sort of curious where that leads. But my main favorite in this team is going to be Rune Hergots. I'm very, very curious what he does. He's breakaway specialist, TT specialist. So yeah, I love seeing him in the breakaways. Just how he's one of those guys, kind of from the prototype of the Gent, super specialized on that, and always love to see it.
Hugo Page will come to the Vuelta with quite a lot of confidence as well, as he took his first pro victory a couple of days ago in Tour du Limousin. So that's a nice way to start his first Grand Tour as well, with a pro win under the belt.
Yeah, if the last race you've done right before you start your first Grand Tour is a stage win, then of course you're gonna be on the start line with quite a lot of confidence.
Rein Taramé was wearer of the leader's jersey a couple of days last year, or one day if I recall correctly. Can he do that again by some sort of sneaky thing, play with the break? Or isn't the parkour suited for that enough in the first week?
It would have to happen on stage 2 already, because on stage 3 we're already having a mountaintop finish in Andorra. So unless he's able to go for the stage win in Andorra, I don't expect that to happen. He's not getting any younger. He's had quite a few. No, that's last year. His shape is unsure. He was all right in the Czech Tour by the looks of it. But beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have pretty high expectations about him. He will be in the breaks, and he will be in the decisive breaks in mountain stages, but I doubt he will be able to get a stage win and surely get the leader's jersey. He will have to be very lucky, certainly with the team time trial in the first week. It's not the strongest team in the team time trial. It's not the baddest, it's not the worst as well, because they have a Hergots, they have a Julius Johansen who can TT a little bit, but it will be hard for him to get that red jersey again.
Yep.
Then Team Jaco Alula. I'm gonna say it again. I don't know why, it's getting boring, but with Felix Engelhardt, a promising young guy, exciting guy, Dunbar, Maas, Berge, Hepburn, Scotson, Sobrero, and Zana. This is a a lovely little team.
Yeah. Dunbar for GC, obviously. After what he showed at the Giro this year, I think that's very warranted. He was a lot stronger than I expected him to be in the Giro. So in this field, I rate him a little bit lower. But he was fourth place for a very long time in the Giro. Here, he's a solid top 10 pick. If you want to pick a rider for top 10, he deserves to be in there. Maybe even top 5 if he's been able to make a little extra step since the Giro. And then you have Zana, which I'm very excited about after all of his performance at the Giro. And what other race was it where he won? Yeah. His season's been great. Sort of kind of blossomed since joining Jaco Lula, since joining the World Tour. And of course, Felix Engelhardt is, one of those talents that everyone's looking forward to see how they develop.
Yes, Zana rode the Giro, and then 2 or 3 weeks after he went to Tour of Slovenia, and that's his last race till now. So he had a little bit more than 2 months to prepare properly for the Vuelta. So he might be a very good domestique for Dunbar again, and he surely will get some freedom together with Sobrero to try and take stage glory on some more tough finishes.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Callum Scottson. I don't know what to expect from him. What do you expect from him?
Callum Scottson is, I have to be honest, a guy that's not really on my radar. He has ridden the Giro this year, but he DNS'd in stage 10. I don't know if it's because of illness, probably because that Giro was mayhem with DNSs, with Remco also DNSing with COVID. So I don't really have a clue. His Tour de Pologne was very anonymous. So he can surprise me.
No. Okay.
Then one of the youngest teams lining up here is Groupama FDG. The average age of their team is 23 years old. And you have to keep in mind, Rudy Mollard is in there. He's going to babysit the little children, and he's 33. So, you know how young the others are. Storer, Mollard, Romain Grégoire, Lenny Martinez, that are 2 French kids that have to carry the hope of the whole of France on their shoulders to win a Grand Tour in the future. Lorenzo Germani, Samuel Watson, Louis Askey, and Clément David. That are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 riders who are eligible for the white jersey. Storer is just too old for that. He's 26. And then Mollard, he's on babysitting duty in this year's Vuelta. He has to put the children into bed at the right timing and wake them up.
Make sure they're all showing up for breakfast.
Nothing. They have to do nothing. The team can start the Vuelta without expectations. It's for most of them their Grand Tour debut. They are all very talented, but no one expects them to do big things GC wise. They can, I think so. Maybe already in France there are some rumors about Martinez or Grégoire. I have no clue. But in my opinion, the guys just have to discover and pick their stages.
Exactly. Lenny Martinez, to me, is the more exciting of the 2. But he's also had a win in the Dénivelé Challenge. Is that right? Yes. Am I remembering that right? So, he's able to climb up mountains pretty well. So, like you said, it's a team without expectations. Nobody's going to be like, oh, they had a very disappointing Vuelta. Like, no, they're here to learn stuff.
I have quite a bold take. I'm taking a look at stage 2 from Mataró to Barcelona, where they have to climb the Castel de Montjuïc, if I pronounced it correctly. It's
No.
no, I don't. Please help me then. But you prick. that's a little hill, but it peaks at 9.4%, and it's only a few kilometers away from the finish. And we saw in the Dénivelé challenge that Lenny Martinez is very explosive at the finish. And Romain Grégoire won 2 stages in the Tour du Limousin last week as well, and he won the general classification as well. And he proved there that he's explosive as well. So stage 2, fatigue didn't really kick in yet. Young guys, they might try something on that hill I'm not naming again.
Yeah, I mean, I find it very difficult to say that. Not the name of the hill.
Try it. You were laughing with me, so go ahead.
Montjuïc.
All right, followers, is that correct? Please vote Team Eve or Team Bram.
I don't know how many followers we have in that part of Spain. Anyway, stage 2. Look at this year's Tour de France stage 2. You had a surprise in Pierre Latour.
And Lafay.
Sorry, Lafay. Wow, my French writer's knowledge is shameful. Where's Josh if you need him?
Team Bram goes down before the episode is aired.
Yeah. Sorry.
So yeah.
Anyway.
Storer, very good form. Grégoire and Martinez, good form. The Lorenzo Germani, I have to be honest, I didn't hear of him before I saw the lineup. I looked him up.
I've heard of him because he's a bit of a style symbol, because he had this the cap where he cut the top off to make it like into a hairband. His style is on point. I give him points for that.
His results aren't there yet, but probably at the power department of the team, if they even have power meters within that French team. We all know they aren't really professional, but he probably deserves his selection for the team. And then definitely. I think a fast man, Lewis Oski, with not a lot of sprinters lining up. Can be a guy that surprises.
Yeah, I agree. He goes invisible so often, because I think last year he rode, or actually this year he rode pretty much all the one-day races there were, I think. Of course, overestimating there, but he rode pretty much all of the one-day classics in Flanders and France that he could, and pretty good at them as well, like a 5th place in Nokere Koersen. I understand that internationally that's not a critically acclaimed race in the men's peloton, but looking at the names that are just ahead of him, it's pretty good. De Merlier, Edward Teuns, Milan Menten, Timo Kielich, Sepp van Marker behind him. Those are strong riders. I think he's one of those guys that can top 5 pretty much all the sprints.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm pretty young as well, so he can surprise us. The second to last French team with all those French and Belgian teams, I'm mixing them up. Team Arkea Samsic or did we already do? We already did them.
Yeah. No, we've not done Arkea Samsic because we've not talked about.
We talked about them before we recorded. Yes. Yves, wake up. So Team Arkea Samsic is Kevin Le Danois, Christian Rodriguez, Hugo Hofstetter, Mathis Leberg, Lucas Ocean, Elie Gesberg, Kevin Vauquelin, and Michel Ries. That's with Kevin Vauquelin. It's his Grand Tour debut, and the team mentions he will get his chance to try and write a good general classification at the end in Madrid. Christian Rodriguez, on the other side, says, I'm not going for GC. I will go for stage wins in the more mountainous stages. And then the flat and a little bit hillier stages are for Hugo Hofstetter. I did the team presentation on Twitter. We are making a thread of every team, a little bit of extra information. And I did the Arkea team around 12 o'clock noon. And my last sentence was there, Hugo Hofstetter can be close to a stage win. But my boss, Hannes, said he didn't really do a lot of things before this Vuelta, so I had to scratch that. And I don't know what I had to write instead, but I had to be a little bit more soft with what I said. But actually, I believe that Hofstetter can podium or be close to a stage win if he is positioned well, if he has the luck. And we all know a sprint isn't easy. A lot can happen in the preparation of it. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my opinion. I don't know what you think about Hofstetter.
After seeing him race in Les Salins, I think that's where, like, this year, who's his best result? Is it his best result? By the looks of it, yes, second place. That's a very hard race with sprinty end, won by Menton, yes. And ahead of Dunes. All those three guys are here this year for the Vuelta. So I think it's fair to assume that he can podium a sprint stage.
Yeah, pretty decent team. They can especially protect Vauquelin for GC, and if it's not happening, he can go for stage wins as well together with Rodriguez. And I guess Bear is a pure climber. He's a lightweight, so
that's actually someone who I'm interested in seeing. We have sort of skipped so far. His results in the Tour de Limousin and Tour de l'Ain have been really good.
Yeah, indeed.
So
Tour de l'Ain 7th. I didn't notice that actually.
Like I just opened his results page, and there's good stuff in here. So he's clearly on form. So don't write him off if he wins or top fives or podiums a hilly stage or a mountain stage.
We have still 6 teams to go. We are already talking 1 hour 25.
We're gonna make it.
I will try. So a little track. They have been announcing a lot of transfers for next season. They even announced the development team next season. But their team now in the Vuelta is, I'm not going to say mediocre, but less impressive than we saw in the Tour and the Giro. They are lining up with Julien Bernard, Kenny Elissonde, Emmanuel Gebreselassie, Juan Lopez, Bauke Mollema, Jacobo Mosca, Edward Teuns, and Otto Verhaarde. Don't understand me wrong, it's not a bad team, but it's not as strong as they lined up in the Tour de France.
Yeah, it's not really a team that excites me. You have Edward Teuns, who's apparently going to get his chance at sprinting for himself. He doesn't get to do that very often with Pedersen and Steven in the team, who are stronger sprinters than him. And you have a Thibaut Ness coming up as well in that team. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for him to get some results for himself. And with Otto Vergaerde, he does have a pretty decent lead-out guy.
I have no clue what to expect from Mollema. He can surprise us once again by going into the attack early in the stage and then right towards the stage win. But I have my doubts. I don't know. His Giro was, I'm not gonna say bad. He finished 4th in the stage to Bergamo after a long attack of 188 kilometers. But Mollema hasn't been the Mollema this year that we have been used to the past seasons.
No, that's he's 36. He still has a contract for next year as well, right? I think
till 2026.
That's insane. But yeah, what you said, I don't expect much from Mollema here. I think maybe what we can expect the most from is Juan Lopez, who can go for stage wins from the break. He's that type of rider that can actually pull that off, especially in Spain, where you have those like high altitude climbs where he tends to do quite well on.
Maybe Kenny Elizondo as well, because the Tour de l'Ain, he was pretty good. He finished second there. He was actually one of the only ones who was able to follow Storer the longest. So, yeah, that's pure climbing, and being Elizondo, you have to be quite lucky to get into that break. The same with Lopez, because that's not really their strength, that break forming thing that you need a lot of power output to be able to get there, or they need a stage where it goes uphill right from the start. There are a couple, but not so much. I think 2 or 3 start with a uphill slope, so yeah, they can surprise me. It's the last Grand Tour. Really gonna say this. Little Trek from next year on is gonna be amongst the best teams everywhere they line up.
Should be, knowing their roster, it's gonna be amazing.
Then the Jonathan Wouters Armada, Education First, Easy Post, of AF Education Easy Post as their official name is. Hugh Carty, Stefan Bissiger, Diego Camargo, Jonathan Caicedo, Andrea Piccolo, Sean Quinn, Julius van den Berg, and Marijn van den Berg. No Carapaz.
Yep. Apparently he didn't recover from he wasn't informed after the crash in the Tour. I think this is still a pretty good team with Hugh Carty going for GC probably. I think Carapaz would have been able to finish higher. But even then, I don't think Carapaz would have podiumed.
Not have podium?
In this field?
In a Vuelta like this, with only 25 kilometers of time trial and a lot of high altitude climbing, a lot of climbing meters, you didn't think he would podium?
No.
That's bold.
I mean, it's a Domestique cycling podcast.
Is this Bram in front of me or Dieter?
I'm a lot shorter, so you should know. I think with Marijn van den Berg, you have someone who's also going to be in the mix for the sprints, but it doesn't look like they have anyone to control the bunch to get to the line for a sprint. And then you have the young talent of Piccolo, if that is correct. Again, this whole Vuelta is full with young guys that are very talented and get the chance to prove themselves. I'm very curious what he does. He hasn't done that much this year, if I remember correctly, and this is me without looking at his page.
I remember him last year, the end of the season, that Italian, I don't know, it's not spring because that's at start of the year, but the Italian classics at the end of the year, he was pretty good last year. So I loved him there. He raced quite aggressively. He was always at the front. So interesting guy. And Carty lost the Angliru. He won there 2 years ago, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
Bissiger can maybe win the only individual time trial, the 25k.
Remco is there. Come on.
Remco is there, I know. But Bissiger can save himself a lot more than Remco can. And Bissiger is always pretty good in shorter time trials. And now it's 25k. So I know I'm talking to the Remco hype train driver, but he will be amongst the top favorites in that time trial. Bissiger. Let's
sure, top favorites for second place.
Yeah, all right. I'm gonna surprise you right now. The Cofidis lineup dropped half an hour ago, so I hope you prepared a bit.
We have to talk about them.
Yes. They're lining up with François Bidard, André Carvalho, Davide Cimolai, Brian Cocar, important, Jesus Herrada, Jose Herrada, Ruben Fernandez, and Remy Rocha. We talked about Groupama having a very young squad, and Cofidis is bringing the opposite. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 names, 6 guys above 30 years old. The youngest is André Carvalho, 25. So they have no one eligible for the U25 jersey, and that's atypical this year's Vuelta.
Yeah, but I'm very happy they're bringing Kokar. At least that's like a good sprinter. I think some of the other sprinters are not very happy about that he got announced. But
Intermarché might be happy because they should have been, they were probably the team that everybody would look at, like we mentioned earlier, to control the sprint stages. And now you have a Cofidis who has with Kokar and a Chimolai, they are both fast guys, who can do something on such stages. So there are now two and a half teams that are willing to control. Mm-hmm. So I think Intermarché might be even happy that Kokar is there.
Yeah, and he was racing very attractively in the Tour. So no, wait.
Yeah, I'm still quite mad on Hannes on that one, because before the Tour de France I said I want to put a bet on Kokar top 3 in the points classification, and he said never gonna happen because rider A, B, C, D is lining up there. But guess what? If I can recall correctly, he finished top 3. And
yeah, it's third.
Yeah, I still didn't see my money of Hannes. I sent him the bill, but he didn't answer it. That's it for the official announcement of the teams. There are 3 teams left that didn't make their squad official yet. Alpecin de Koning, Bora Hansgrohe, and Burgos BH. Alpecin de Koning is on the list, so on the provisional list, Maurice Ballerstedt, Jason Osborne, Robert Gees, and Dries de Bond. I don't think we have to add a lot more than saying Jason Osborne is going to win 4 stages.
Peter's not here. You don't have to say those things.
I need to make sure he listens 1 hour and 40 into the podcast to hear this. So Osborne is going to win 4 stages if we have to believe the data analysis from Dieter. Osborne should be a beast, but he still has to prove himself in that department, in being one of the beasts in the peloton. That 4 names that already have been dropped are mediocre. You have to be honest. I don't know who they are, who they can bring more, to be fair. I have Philipsen certainly not going. Mathieu van der Poel also not going. Søren Kragh Andersen also in the Renewi Tour that's overlapping with the Vuelta. So everybody who's lining up there isn't going to the Vuelta. So it's certainly no Maurice, no Ricard, no Gianni Vermeers, no Philipsen, no Dillier, no Kragh Andersen, and no Leysen. I have actually no clue.
Could they bring Caden Groves?
They can bring Caden Groves if he's not injured, and he's not. His last race was the Worlds.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. I have no clue at all. Like what a Maresco, does he want to go to a Grand Tour? Is it in a contract that he goes to a Grand Tour? We all know a bridge is too steep for him and he drops from the peloton, so the Vuelta wouldn't be a smart thing for him. Maybe Gogol, but I have no idea. He rode the Bemer Classic. Would it be a combination to open up the legs in the Bemer Classic and then go to the Vuelta?
I mean, I don't think so. I think well, it's a week between them, so it's possible, but I wouldn't do it.
Robert Stannard is suspended by the team, right?
Yes, for potential doping violation or like a doping
A
violation
doping
in his
violation in the
past.
past. Yes,
Yeah,
within the Orica Greenwich team, if I recall
Yeah.
correct, or the team that I don't know. But yeah, it's not going to be an impressive squad. I think can already say that. Maybe Quinten Heimans.
Shouldn't he be preparing for the cross season?
Who cares about the cross? Sorry, I'm not a.
Yeah, I'm
I don't
assuming
know.
he still does.
I'm looking at the socials and nothing pops up yet. So it will be something for tomorrow.
I hope it's
Next is
Taylor Groves, but let's move on.
next is Bora Hansgrohe. Not official as well, and the provisional list on there isn't correct because Danny Van Poppel is on there, but he's going to the tour in Germany. I don't know how it's called again.
The Deutschland tour.
To support Sam Bennett. I'm gonna say it again. I don't understand it. Danny Van Poppel is such a good and fast rider, and I know he doesn't want to go for his own chances, that he's not comfortable in being the main sprinter. He mentioned that in the Tour de France last year. And now he's domestiquing again for a Bennett who's washed and who has a contract offer from Tudor. No, yes. He's not gonna be in the World Tour next year, so he's washed. And the only exciting thing about Bora in this lineup here is Kian Uijtbroeks as a Belgian. I love the guy. He always smiles. He's always happy, even when he's tired. Even as he's tired, he laughs.
Yeah, and also looking at his results this year, the World Tour stage races that he's raced, always in top 10.
Yeah.
At his age,
he's the master of consistency.
Yeah, just like it's very rare to like see him really race for the win, but he's always right behind there. And at 20 years old, that's very impressive. I don't think there's going to be too much pressure on him. I think that's actually where it's good that Remco is there. Like from the Belgian media perspective, Uijtbroeks can sort of do his own thing. Remco's got the pressure from the Belgian media, so he doesn't have to worry about that. So that's great. Yeah, I think he's going to top 10, but if he doesn't, that's fine.
Then you have Vlasov, who's going to the Vuelta. We know that for sure already, and who showed some very good form in the Burgos. He was second after the untouchable Roglic, and he was good in San Sebastian as well, where he just couldn't follow Bilbao and Evenepoel. So he's in a more than decent shape, and Vlasov, when he is able to prep himself, probably is always a candidate for top 5 in the general classification, at least, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at how he went in Burgos, in a field that was quite strong with an Adam Yates and Roglic, he's in shape. He's going to be there. And also, it's good because he then takes away the pressure a little bit from Kian Uijtbroeks. So only advantages for Uijtbroeks.
The last two names I want to talk about is Lennart Kemna, who tried to ride the GC in the Giro and who finished 9th. I don't think he will have a feeling after that Giro that he will be a future GC candidate for the upcoming Grand Tours, and certainly not for this year's Vuelta with a lot of climbing. And I actually hope that he's just going rogue again together with De Gent, Urine Herregods, go into attacks in the hillier stages, in the mountain stages. He's a very attractive rider, and I hope that we can see him like that.
Agreed. With Vlasov and Uijtbroeks there, he shouldn't be going for a GC. He's very strong domestique, as he proved in the Giro that I forgot his name already. Damn it. My memory is not doing well today. Anyway, he was very strong at a Giro. I think it was 2 years ago. So I think Bora is just going to be a team that goes for Brooks and Vlasov, and that's it.
Yeah, Higuita is on that list as well, but the guy is having a very mediocre season, and I expected things from him in San Sebastian. He started there. No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. No.
Where did I expect him? I don't know. He was at one point he was one of the main favorites on the betting sites for some stage, and he just dropped 80 kilometers from the finish line. It's not so long ago. It might be. Yeah, I don't know. I have no.
Probably Tour de Suisse.
Yeah, but he finished second in the mount classification there. Oh, because he went in the break in stage 5.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Burgos, we don't have a single name of them. Probably Daniel Navarro, probably as well.
Probably.
Is he still riding his bike? That's another question. Yes, he's still riding his bike. So that's it.
And we can say that Yatsabol is going to be there as well.
Yeah.
He has to be.
I guess so. He's always in there. Angel Madrazo, surely as well. He's the breakaway king who's always in the break. So, yeah. That's it. We went through all the teams lining up. A lot of youth is one conclusion that we can take. Lining up. And one last question. Who will win the Vuelta? Your head and your heart. I already know your heart, but say it.
Yeah, my heart says Remco, but I think my head says Vingegaard.
Yeah, that's not really a surprise. That's not why people listen. They want surprises if they listen.
That's what you're here for, Yves.
No, I'm gonna be quite boring as well. I'm gonna say my heart is Ayuso, and my head is. I'm gonna go quite bold and say Roglic.
Okay. I mean,
that's it.
Not that illogical, but and of course we have to repeat Peter's pick with head and heart is Ayuso.
Yeah, and he's demolishing the opposition. There is no competition for Ayuso. He's finishing 5 minutes in front of the second. So you guys all know that. Just skip 3 weeks, and it will all be in the media that Ayuso won the Vuelta, according to Dieter at least.
Well, do come back for the podcast in between so you can get the progress a little bit. Don't just skip 3 weeks.
Yeah, of course.
Gotta get our viewers.
Up to you, Bram.
That's a wrap for today's Domestique Cycling Podcast. A big thank you to our audience for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, consider supporting us on Ko-Fi or Twitter. And if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I've got the spores, the sickness. Let's be twins.